Do the Sundarban Islands losing its territory? The answer is yes. Sundarban Islands have lost their territory during the different geological ages in the Earth's history. But you will be surprised to know that the major loss of the islands have taken place during the recent geological time period. It means during the late Holocene period, the period which is still on, it is known as the late Holocene. So during the late Holocene period, the Sundarban Islands have lost its glory, have lost its territory, and one problem that is the most severe and serious as well, it is the problem of climate change. And whenever I talk about the climate change, another term that actually comes into our mind, it is the global warming. It is the global warming. Now, Sundarban Islands have lost its so many islands. Here, with the term Sundarban, I am considering the Indian part of the Sundarban as well as the Bangladesh part of the Sundarban also. Now, my question is how many islands tentatively have totally vanished from the Sundarban Islands due to the problem of this global induced, it means the climate change, the global warming, and the consequent sea level rise? We have lost four important islands. One is the bedrock, one is the bedrock. It is also known as the Suparibhanga. And the second one is the Lohachara. Third one is the South Talpatti Island. And the fourth one is the Kabashgali. Now, most importantly, this South Talpatti Island, this island has become very crucial from the geopolitical point of view because this island makes a controversial boundary in the Sundarban portion in between India and Bangladesh. So that island is also very much important from the geopolitical point of view. Now the question is, what is the scenario of this island submergence? One problem that is very severe, I have told earlier, that is the global warming and consequent sea level rise. Now, if you just focus on this southern part of this region, there is, and of course, this region as well, there is continuous increase of the Bay of Bengal water within the river catchment during the different types of the tide and ebb situation. It means during the time of the high tide, maybe during the time of the ebb, there is continuous increase of the Bay of Bengal seawater within the catchment of this river. So, what will be the problem? The problem is very severe. The problem is that whenever the seawater will be increasing through the catchment of the river, this surrounding agricultural land, it will be totally salinized. So salinization is a problem for the surrounding areas. Now it will be creating another problem. So salinization will be a problem in this sector as well. Now it will create another problem. The problem is that if the farmers were previously engaged in agriculture in that sector, suppose the farmers are involved in the agricultural activities in that sector. Now, due to the increase of this coastal saline water, the farmers will have no other choice but to shift their occupation from agriculture to fishing, and that fishing will be a major concern. Why it will become a major concern? Because the previously the farmers were involved, say for example in farming in the southern part of West Bengal and Bangladesh. Previously the farmers were involved in rice cultivation. Now whenever there will be increase of seawater, that total land will be salinized. In that salinized land, the prawn farming, it will become very important. So overnight, these rice cultivation lands are converted to pond fishing ground. So there will be a change in the land use and land cover because of the ingress of the seawater. And that ingress of the seawater is so pathetic that even the surrounding areas are facing the problem of the submergence by the seawater, and all these lands are become totally salinized. So these areas will face the problem of salinization, where the salt content within the particular soil will become very high. Now, for the rivers, the major source of the soil is the magnesium chloride. Now, if you consider the source of the salt in the case of the sea, the source of the salt is the sodium chloride. Now, this sodium chloride will have a detrimental effect on the land of the coastal areas. And this is NaCl is responsible for the maximum amount of salinity of this seawater. So that's a very important thing. Now, the other important thing is that since the Bay of Bengal is very much famous from the occurrence of cyclone, and whenever the cyclone originates near the Andaman Sea, it actually takes these paths to affect the coastal Sundarban area. Say, for example, the evolutionary phase of the cyclone is if it is originating from low pressure, it will be converted to depression after a few hours, and maybe after a few days, it will be converted to deep depression. Then it will be converted to cyclonic storm, and after that, it will be converted to severe cyclonic storm. So, what happens in the case of the low pressure? Suppose the isobaric value was 1000 MB. In each and every stage, from low pressure to severe cyclonic storm, there will be abrupt fall in the isobaric value. Maybe at the SCS level, the isobaric value is 990 MB. So from 1000 MB, the isobaric pressure value has fallen to 990 MB. So, whenever the cyclones originates near the Andaman Sea, this cyclone generally takes that patches, and from that path the cyclone moves towards the inner part of the river, and due to the movement of the cyclone through the inner part of the river catchment, the cyclone will create the problem which is known as the storm surge, and because of this storm surge, the water will inundate the surrounding areas. Because in the case of the storm surge, the water level height may range from 3 to 5 meter from the mean sea level. So the height of the seawater becomes 3 to 5 meter higher than the mean sea level. So automatically this coastal belt will be totally inundated because of this severe cyclonic storms induced storm surge. Okay, now, if you go to this islands, this is a zoom in view of the islands. Now, if you go to this island, the problem is that just look at the boundary of that islands. This boundary of that islands are known as the tidal flat. And this is the most severe zone in the case of an island. Whenever the island submerges, first of all, this part are completely flooded. And after that, the entire islands are completely affected, completely flooded by the seawater. And this islands comes under the total captured of the seawater, and it is totally inundated, and finally that island will become vanished, and we will blame that climate change is responsible for that, because due to climate change there is rise in the sea level. So automatically these islands will be vanished. But remember, climate change is responsible, no doubt of it, but the role of the human beings cannot be ignored in that respect. The human beings are also responsible for the occurrence of that. If climate change is responsible 40%, the role of the human beings can be taken up to 60%. So the role of the human beings are very crucial in the inundation of this tidal flat. If you go to a coastal area, In a coastal area, there are basically some parts. If this is the land surface, if this is the land surface, so this is the upper part of the coastal land where the seawater can never touch us, or the seawater can never reach up to that level. That area is known as the supralittoral zone. During the time of the spring tide or during the time of the high tide, the water may reach up to that level of the coast. Whenever there is a ebb like situation, this water will fall, the level of the water will fall, and ultimately the water will come up to that level. So, this is a particular zone on the coastal land which remains totally dominated by the seawater, which never comes in the upward portion or upward position of the sea level. Okay, so that part is known as the superlittoral zone. So, which zone is known as the superlittoral zone? Superlittoral zone is that zone of the coastal land which all the time remains under the seawater. It never get exposed. Okay, now in between the, say for example, this is zone A or this is line A and this is line B. So there is a zone A and B. It means in between A and B there is a zone which completely faces the upward movement of the seawater and the downward movement of the seawater. It means there is a fluctuation in the seawater level, and that zone that faces the fluctuation of the sea level, that is known as the littoral zone. So, coastal land can be classified into three types. One is the supralittoral zone where the seawater can never reach, not even during the time of the high tide water. Superlittoral zone is that zone in which the area is completely inundated by the seawater in the different time period. So it never gets exposed. Okay. Now in between the supra and super there is a zone which faces the upward movement of the seawater and the downward movement of the seawater. So in sometimes it becomes dry, and in some times of the day it becomes wet. So dryness and the wetness becomes a complete phenomena of this region. It is known as the littoral zone. Now, if you come to this area now is under the dominance. Look at the color of this area. The color is green because of the dominance of the land and the vegetation. Now look at the color of this one. That color is almost grayish green type of color is over there, or something like ash color is there. So why the color has been converted? Previously this area, it means this area was a part of the land. Because of the sea level rise, it means because of the phenomena of the supralittoral zone, superlittoral zone and the littoral zone, it means because of the continuous tide and ebb, there is ingress of the seawater and the outward movement of the seawater. So this area faces the continuous sea level rise and continuous sea level fall. But according to the ordinary people, if you are a common man, if you visit to that island, according to you, that area is a beach area. That area is a beach area. So all the time you will enjoy on the beach from day to night. You will jump, you will play on that beach. And because of the human activities, there is a process of lowering of the land. Because the human beings are making continuous pressure on that area because of their refreshment purpose, whatever may be. So this is not the beach area. This is basically the tidal flat. That tidal flat had been a part of the mainland, but unfortunately that tidal flat, the color of the tidal flat has continuously changed because of the rise in the sea level. So because of the rise in the sea level, there is a role of the climate change, no doubt of it. But due to the submergence of the land, the role of the human beings cannot be ignored. Due to that reason, the entire coastal belts of the Sundarban are continuously facing the submergence of their islands. Now, a very important part is that if you go to the riverine system of the Sundarban, that rivers are completely making a dense network. If you follow the stream pattern, the first stream pattern is known as the straight. It means there is no such curvature in a river. So the river is moving in a very straight direction. Second stage is the sinuous. So in that phase, there will be a little bit bending in the river course. The third stage is the meandering phase. In the meandering phase, there will be more bending in the rivers. And the last phase is known as the tortuous phase, where there will be complete bending and ultimately there will be the formation of the oxbow lake. However, there is a complete shifting and complete dense network of the river, and look at the just pattern of the river. The rivers are not straight, the rivers are either meandering or tortuous. So why the rivers have taken this kind of the shape? Because of the huge accumulation of the sand and silt at the bank of the river and at the channel catchment as well. So the velocity and the speed of the river has completely declined. The rivers are unable to carry the loads. So ultimately the rivers have taken this kind of the shapes. So deposition is a greater phenomena at this level. But the deposition can only take place at the coastal belts when when there will be no such process of sea level rise. Only the deposition can take place over here by the river if there is no such process of the climate change induced sea level rise. If there is sea level rise, then the deposition will be completely washed out, and ultimately there will be no such new formation of the island, nor the island will be increased in size due to deposition of the sediment carried by those rivers. Why? Because the climate change induced sea level rise are continuously washing those deposited sediments from the bank of the land, and ultimately it is carrying the sediments to the deeper part of the sea. So that is the main reason behind the disappearance or the vanishing of the islands from the Sundarban sectors. Thank you all of you.